hello, and welcome again to a new episode of the QCast. I'm John. I'm joined again by my good pal, Eddie. I don't know where to look, Eddie. We're in separate areas. I got screens all over the place here. You're joining us from North Carolina, right?
Yeah, I'm here for a short work trip, just checking in with the team here. But man, is it hot. I think the actual air temperature the last couple of days has been over 100 with Carolina humidity in full force. So it is, it's rough, man. Even my hotel is having a hard time keeping up.
Yikes. I don't think you've had a button-up shirt on the show yet. Feeling fancy
there's
today.
a lot of firsts going on this podcast. Right?
It'll be amazing if this ever even sees the light of day.
It's not going to happen.
What's going to happen is we're going to have the most amazing podcast, and then it just won't work. We're going to reshoot it.
How you feeling?
Well, Eddie, I'm feeling good. I'm kind of tired from the road trip to San Clemente, but I'll get into that in a minute. But we've got a great show, Eddie. Let me preview it for you. So we've got a lot of news coming up, including my trip to San Clemente and whatever you've been working on for the past couple of weeks. We've got some news about the ProKennex Black Ace. Didn't think that would be coming back in the news anytime soon, but got some x-rays to look at, and some durability issues with a couple of paddles that we should be talking about, and also some early releases for a couple of really good paddles. So we got the GRUVN LAZR-16HD Full Foam and another full foam core, the Honolulu J2NF. Both of those are on pre-order this week. And then for paddles of the week, we're going to talk about the new shapes from Avoura. So Avoura is this made in the USA paddle company. We talked about their original one. Geez, do you remember the name of that? Avoura Rhapsody. And they've got a couple of new shapes, which I'm pretty keen on. And then the Gearbox GX2 Power, which is not released yet. So it's an iteration of their GX2 paddle line. And then what else? Oh, we've got some paddle giveaway results. We've got some poll results. And we've got Gear of the Week, Rudy Eyewear. And then I've got a little deep dive here, Eddie. We're going to talk about full foam cores and whether or not adding different densities of foam help the performance of that said core, paddle. Yeah.
John, I did not book 3 hours for all of this. I don't think I can fit it in.
I just kept adding. I just kept coming to me as I was writing these notes.
Well, it's been a couple. When was our last episode? 2 weeks ago. So
2 weeks, yeah.
It's been building up. So
that's right. And then Q&A.
Let it go. Good.
Okay.
Great.
You pulled in some questions this week. So
I did.
Let's jump in. First thing I wanted to note is for news is that we have a new 24-hour Melin code that goes into effect tomorrow. So I have to publish this pod in some way. It goes into effect June 26th, starting at noon Mountain Time, and goes 24 hours at June 27th, noon Mountain Time. So that code is JWILL20, so JWILL 20 for 20% off Melin hats. So they have a new Americana line here, one of which I'm wearing right now. And so now's a good time. It had been a while since I bought some Melin caps, so I will definitely be using that code for 20% off. All right, Eddie. So let's move on to the San Clemente recap. So last week I went to San Clemente for the Orange County PPA Cup. That was my second year in a row to visit this fantastic venue. This is the only one per year that Michelle, my wife, actually enjoys coming with me. And she actually, we arrived on Tuesday, so we watched Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. She took the Sunday off and strolled through the beach. And even by Sunday, which I love watching pro pickleball, by Sunday I was like, man, I could take a break from pro pickleball for a hot minute here. I'm glad I went though, because there were some fantastic matches. But thank you to everybody who came up and said hi. That was very, very heartwarming that people who actually recognized me would actually take time out of their day and come and say hi and say kind things about our podcast. Everybody loves
facility is
the pod who mentioned it. The facility is fantastic.
Yes.
Not very friendly to handicapped people.
Oh, well.
They had one you remember last year, it's all stairs going down.
So many stairs. Yeah. Right.
They had a handicap access sidewalk, which goes around to like the side gym, and it takes you down to the next flight of stairs. And then there's like 2 other flights of stairs. So I'm telling you, Eddie, I'm going to have a really jacked left leg after this cast comes off, because I do a lot of single leg hopping up and down stairs. My right leg on the other hand.
Find a way to like strategically use that to your advantage once you're back.
Yeah. Did you get a chance to watch any of the PPA?
I did not. I was a busy guy.
Okay. Yeah. Did you see anything about like the Jack Sock Nasty Nelson?
No, tell me.
No? Okay. I forget who they were playing. There was a couple of guys I didn't know, younger guys and great guys. I enjoyed the match, but they were playing men's doubles, and Jack got tagged, body bagged by one of the other guys. I think it was like a cross court speed up even, and it wasn't anything vicious. It wasn't even too high. It was like right in the middle of the chest. But he just was like, all right, and it walks back, and he's got that new SOK era paddle, which is way more powerful than anything he's played with through Selkirk before. And he steps up to serve and just rockets a ball into the guy at the net. Totally. I mean, it was pinpoint accuracy. It's about as hard of a nasty Nelson as I've ever seen. And he didn't raise up his hand to apologize or anything and just carried on. The other guy just turned around and laughed and kept going. But there was apparently a big split on Instagram as to, was that appropriate or was it not? Was it inappropriate? I don't know. I can't ask your opinion since, well, I could. You didn't see it, but what do you think about that scenario?
What would not be appropriate? It's not sportsmanlike conduct?
Yeah. I mean, is
come on, it's part of the
okay
game.
for a professional sport? I mean, would you, I don't know. I don't think I'd want to see it like all the time, just like, especially as paddles are as powerful as they are today. It's almost too easy to nasty Nelson somebody. On the other hand,
hilarious.
Watching it live, it was pretty funny, especially since the other guy didn't take it personally. He turned around and laughed it off. If the guy would have been upset, then I would have been, my opinion on this may have changed. But Jack, it was kind of funny because he's hilarious on the court anyway, and he didn't really laugh it off. Jack didn't, but it was just like, all right, you tag me, I'm going to tag you, and we'll move on. And then at the end of the match, there was no hard feelings, and he came up and laughed and shook their hands and everything.
I think it's great. It's in the rules. It's totally legal. Let's go for it. Why not?
But I will say, like, Jack has got great aim with that forehand of his. My God, it was just like dead point, a foot over the net, right into his chest. No way getting out of the way of that ball. Just no way.
Now, is it different if it's mixed and you're targeting, a female across the net from you? That could get a little weird, right? I mean, there's still some of that, I don't know, parochialism, I guess.
Yeah. But anyway, let us know in the comments which side you're on, appropriate or not. Is it something you want to see or not?
Have you ever attempted it in a tournament, John?
Never in a tournament.
Had it done to you?
Not in a tournament, no.
Yeah, same.
I mean, rec play, yeah. Sometimes we play around and try it. You got Paula really good one time in rec play when she was on my team. You just hit this top spin serve and it just dipped and hit her right in the hip. I think it was dead on. She laughed it off too.
That sounds like something I did.
Yeah, sounds like Eddie.
Yep.
There was another one. We're not going to talk too much about the gameplay since you didn't see it, but Connor Garnett, who was on the podcast last week, it was a pleasure to sit down with him, and he had this amazing comeback in singles, playing with Jack Sock or against Jack Sock. And Connor was down, and he ended up coming back and winning the first game. And he was down 0-10 in the second game to Jack Sock. Like, Jack just could not miss. He did these laser beam drives, painting the lines, cross-court winners, and Connor was just waiting it out. And I finally got a point at 0-10, got up to 110, and Michelle, my wife, turns to me, she's like, wouldn't it be crazy if Connor came back and won this game? he ended up doing it. He got, so 12 points in a row, down 0-10, and then ended up winning at 12-0. And then Connor was playing absolutely flawless pickleball. Like, can you imagine, in singles especially, you can't miss a serve, you can't miss anything. And he was, he was playing for real. It wasn't like he was just patty caking the ball over on serves or returns. Everything was deep, everything was hard, and it was the craziest comeback I've ever seen in my life. It was nuts.
Yeah. So how do you and versus Michelle see these events? I mean, do you have a different perspective on things?
I mean, probably. She's more into she loves kind of the on court antics and any drama that comes around. She's a big fan of, and I'm more watching paddles, technology, and play. But I enjoy storylines too, so we both enjoy it.
Well, it's good that you can enjoy something together, but not necessarily see things the same way.
Yeah, for sure. I talked to several pros, one of which I wanted to mention. So Hayden Patriquin, he was just chilling, eating lunch, and I walked up to him like, "Hey, Hayden, which are you playing with, the C45 Dynasty, 16 or 14?" And he was like, 16. I was like, great, because that's what I have in my database of pro paddle sightings. And I was like, why do you like the 16? Because you and I like the 14 better. A lot of people do. And he gave a really surprising answer. He's like, you know what? The 14 is just too poppy for me. I'm like, really? Like the way he plays, just at the net, just pressuring and flicking everything and surprising everybody. Like, I figured he'd love a poppier paddle, but he was like, yeah, I just can't control the pop on the 14.
Interesting. I don't even consider that paddle exceptionally poppy. We've tested many recently that are poppier.
Yeah. I mean, coming from the Dynasty Tour, what was it, the Tour series that they had before this? I mean, it's much more powerful and poppy than that. Mm-hmm. But, I think he's just used to a 16 as he's been playing with for years now, and switching to a 14 is maybe too much of a leap. But so he and who's the other Franklin pro? No, who plays with the 16s? J-Dub. He also plays with the Dynasty 16. Everybody else on the pro roster, which there are several, George is playing with the C45 hybrid, but Paris Todd and all the other pros, I think there's like 5 of them that are their lesser known pros. They're all playing with the Dynasty 14. Two top pros, Dynasty 16, and I'd say Paris is a top pro too, playing with the 14, but all the other pros, Dynasty 14s. Are you still maintaining that, Eddie?
Oh yeah, fantastic, love it.
Yeah,
it's just, man, it does so many things well and with such ease and predictability. It's really fantastic.
Yeah, that's good.
I should spend some more time with 15 just to pick up on any nuance difference between the two, because they're actually pretty close in performance, I would say.
Yeah. Well, after today's pod, there are so many good paddles that we're talking about today and coming out soon. I imagine they'll be tempting for you, Eddie, to potentially switch out of your current main into a new one. All right, last
took me a long time to get here, so we'll see.
Right. Last little bit from San Clemente I wanted to mention is being there in person is really cool, especially on grandstand court. Like, yes, if you're on center court, you're still hearing a little bit of chatter between the players, but unless you're in the very front row, you're not hearing much. And even in the front row, it's a pretty big court, the center court at San Clemente. But going to the grandstand court, it's like a small court. You're right. Your toes are kind of hanging out a little too far into the court, and you feel like you're in the way of the players, but you can really hear interactions and stuff. But it's fun to be able to hear players talking to each other and the trash talk when it happens. But I really enjoy watching Jessie Irvine interact with Gabe Tardio. She's kind of like his, not necessarily coach, but she's certainly there for moral support all the time. She's sitting on the sidelines. So when she's not playing with him or playing with other people, and just kind of coaching him. And I love Gabe's personality too. He's just like, especially for his age, he's so calm, and he's got, He doesn't play out of anger. A lot of players like K. Fahey have to be a little angry to play well. He's the opposite. He's just like very serene. And Jessie knows him so well, and it's just fun because he'll hit a point, whether or not he loses the point, or usually after he misses a point, he'll kind of look over at Jessie, and she just gives him this
I like
serene,
that.
this serene nod. Just what he needs, you know. So,
The philosopher.
I enjoy those two. Yes, they're both, Gabe the philosopher. All right. Well, let's move on, Eddie, to more news. We've got plenty of news to cover. Just wanted to mention that JOOLA will be discontinuing their discounts. They had a 10% discount program ever since they started making paddles, but that will be discontinued starting on July 1st. So coming up here in just a few days. They didn't really explain why. And normally when they have a big release like the JOOLA 4s, there's I think it was a 60-day period when there's no codes that would activate a discount, and then discounts happened after 60 days. And that 60 days is up for the Pro 4s, and you can get discounts on them now, but with code 10%. But starting July 1st, nothing will be discounted ever. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a mistake.
Yeah.
Not just because it's something that obviously we use and we pass along to our audience members, but just that connection with the community and tying in what we do with what players are talking about, ambassadors. I mean, I think that's a mistake. It's a nothing amount of money for a huge game.
I totally agree. I mean, they're already priced at $280, over $300 with tax. I'll acknowledge they probably don't need a discount. Their paddles are selling like hotcakes, like almost everybody at tournaments has one, and many of the pros are playing with them. However, it doesn't bode well for their reputation as being, a lot of people, the JOOLA haters out there think of JOOLA as kind of like the evil empire who's greedy and just looking after their profit margins. That doesn't clean up that reputation much, It's
right.
Not lending a helping hand to their consumers. And we'll talk about this in a minute, but yeah, I think it is a mistake also because there are more and more reports of the Pro 4s breaking. I mean, my God, how many times has this happened with JOOLA now, and simultaneously discontinuing a discount? It just seems like bad timing. So hopefully they'll reconsider that and create a new discount code later. But as of July 1st, no more 10%. All right, and speaking of JOOLA, Fed Staksrud. He was all decked out in not only the JOOLA paddle, which he's been playing with, even though he's an Adidas pro, signed with Adidas back in, December, January. But he was also wearing JOOLA clothing at San Clemente, which I didn't ask him directly, but basically means, and I've heard through the grapevine, that he's terminating his contract with Adidas and going back to JOOLA.
That was fast.
Fast time, a quick time with Adidas. But it dragged out where he wasn't playing with Adidas paddles ever. I think he lost one singles match with the Adidas paddle and never looked back. But I find Fed interesting because he switches paddles so often. Mm-hmm. So if we look back at Fed's paddle journey, so I think I don't know what he played with before JOOLA signed him, but I remember his first paddle as being the Perseus 3, so the Gen 3 Perseus, before it was delisted by USAP. And then he went to the mod for a short period because the mod was, still legal. Then he switched, before the mod was delisted, he switched to the Perseus 3S, right? I remember him playing with the 3S for a while. And then he went to a Scorpius for a while, the Scorpius 3S. And then when the Perseus 4 came out, he played with the Perseus 4, 16 mil. And then at San Clemente, I'm always keeping an eye on the paddles of the pros to update my database and everything, but he was playing with the Scorpius 4, 16 mil. at
All
San
right.
Clemente, both for singles and doubles. I thought maybe it was just his doubles paddle and he'd switch to the Perseus for singles, but he was playing with that Scorpius the entire time.
I still have not seen that paddle.
I haven't either. YOLA's yet to send us one. But yeah, I'd love to interview Fed and just get his thoughts, because he's one of the few pros I feel like that really, he's picky, number one, clearly, because he's not going to play with any paddle. But also he's kind of feeling his way around and switching back and forth. And I'm sure he has good reasons. I'd love to pick his brain on why he plays with this particular paddle shape and why he's changed so many times through his journey.
So I'm guessing there will be no Adidas signature Fed paddle.
No. I did see the Adidas guys in San Clemente, and they handed me a paddle just to look at, and it was I don't know if I can talk about it, but maybe that was the Fed paddle that was going to come out, and now it's just going to be the next generation of Adidas paddles. But so they have stuff in the works, and it was not a metal bone. I should be able to say that.
Yes.
And it didn't look like a metal bone. So potentially good things on the horizon from Adidas. Okay, another little bit of news. So the ProKennex, this odd statement came out from USAP that the ProKennex Black Ace, after all, will not be delisted. So if you're currently playing with the Black Ace, but only the LG model of the Black Ace, which is that long handle that De La Rosa plays with, that will continue to remain fully legal for tournament play. But all the others, variants of that, including the classic Black Ace Pro, will be delisted or sunset on July 1st. But that statement is just weird. I'm not going to read it all because a few other people have covered this, but basically they're saying that the Black Ace 11 mil paddles, so their original ones, they're saying that they derive their power from build quality and the thinness of the core, and not from that trampoline effect. And what the gist of the whole statement seems like it's saying is that they delisted it because they thought it was going to fail PB Core, but it seems like they never PB Core tested it. And that was back, when they were delisting the Gen 3s, the YOLA Gen 3s, and other paddles that were known to be very powerful. But it's just odd to me that they never PB Core tested it, presumably because they didn't have like stats saying, oh, we PB Core tested it and then and it was over and now it's not. No, they didn't say anything about the PB Core test or the scores. And then they went on to say, but all the others will still be sunset, even though all the others still have the same build quality and characteristics as the one there. It's just weird, super weird. And, maybe it's just because De La Rosa is playing with it and ProKennex doesn't, appeal to have it not delisted. It doesn't look good, though, for USAP.
I can't wrap my head around what you just said. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. It's an odd thing. Anyway.
Build quality as a term doesn't even, how does that compute to anything?
No. And coincidentally, I did PB Core, Q Core test my old Black Ace Pro, and it passed. According to my correlation to PB Core, mine came in at like a 0.53, which roughly is a 0.43 or 0.42, something around there with USAP's PB Core. So high, but not by any means illegal, which is, kind of where I think of it as. It's not, especially from the baseline, it doesn't have a ton of power with full swings. Definitely one of the poppiest paddles out there still, but not illegal levels of power that you're seeing with many paddles out there today.
Are the base dimensions, is the shape of the paddle for the long handle much different than the standard?
No, it looks almost identical, just maybe a 1/4 inch longer handle.
Yeah, so I can't see how that would remarkably affect PB Core.
No. And coincidentally, I also X-rayed it, my old Black Ace Pro, and I have that on here on the notes, Eddie, if you want to look at it too. I was curious because remember the micro tungsten beads they had in the perimeter of the paddle and down into base?
Yeah, the shake weights.
Yeah. It sounds like a Morocco when you shake it. I just wondered what they look like. And you can see them kind of filling the cells at the edges of the paddle. So the paddle's sitting on a board upright. You can see I taped it up there. So the little beads are literally at the bottom of those cells, and you can kind of shake them around. It looks like they're confined in the cells. Like I can't quite see if you can I'm pretty sure that they're not able to transfer between polypropylene cells, but they are shakeable within a singular cell that they're trapped in.
I see.
And it looks like they're using some kind of weight in the handle. It looks like wads of cotton or something. But for that to show up on an X-ray so brightly, there's got to be some kind of metallic something or other, or it's got to be super high density something, polymer in the handle. So that's interesting. I would like to. The X-ray doesn't extend all the way to the base of the handle, but if you remember, there's like a little window in the butt cap of these that you can look and see the tungsten beads. I think that's just going to be in the very, very base, but clearly they're not visible here. But yeah, everything else looks kind of normal for a thermoform paddle, but it was pretty well ahead of its time. I mean, this looks like a modern thermoform paddle, except for the tungsten beads is kind of unique for the ProKennex Black Ace. But
I was going to say this. That's foam around the edges, right? I mean, that's very early.
Yeah.
For foam.
For sure. Pretty cool. All right, let's move on to kind of paddle durability. So Chris from Pickleball Studio posted an Instagram post last week and their latest podcast with Pickleball Studio. They talked about how Aizec's Holbrook Arma has broken after only about 10 hours of play. And by broken, I mean like core crushed, right? He says when you press on the center, it crunches and it's become like a cannon, super, super powerful. And that kind of, so that, all of us reviewers, when we reviewed it, or at least I could speak for myself, I dissected one and there was a little bit of core crushing and the x-rays looked, a little fishy. So, that was a warning I think I gave everybody in the review, just like, hey, this thing plays amazing and it's at the top of power. But, if you're concerned at all about durability, you might want to wait until this thing hits the street and we have a larger sample size. So, there does seem to be an issue there. I did talk with Holbrook at San Clemente. Tyler was there from Holbrook, and he saw the post. It happened while I was there, and we were both there. And I did appreciate his response to that. He was just like, he was on it. He was making calls. You could tell he was very, very concerned. He told me some of the things that they were doing that they talked about on the call and asked me for my advice as well. But unlike some other companies that I won't name, who when we brought up durability issues and x-rays and stuff, and they were like, yeah, that's going to happen with some of the paddles. They were just like, oh my God, we're on this. We need to fix this. So a couple of things they mentioned they were doing in kind of a QC audit at the factory that they have is going back and making sure that the polypropylene is cut within margin of error standard, so it's not too thick when it goes into mold, and also the molds themselves. That's probably the main source of core crushing is the variability in the thickness of the molds. If the mold is too thin, even if the polypropylene is perfect, it's going to overcompress the polypropylene. So they're going back and making sure all of those are under control. And they stand by their 1-year warranty, and it's basically a no questions asked warranty. So if any of you bought one and you're experiencing core crushing, then I'm sure they will take care of you. And they have a 1-year warranty, which is twice the industry standard for Gen 3 paddles, right? So that was kind of, good to see, not good that some of these are breaking, or at least one is broken, as we suspected. Looking at
that was my question, John. Is this a sample size of one, or have you heard other anecdotal reports of problems?
No, I haven't heard other problems, but I'm sure there will be. I'm sure that I'd be surprised if the one that I cut open that had some core crushing wouldn't have broken with heavy play. That being said, they did show me an x-ray of the paddle they gave me while I was there, which I'm giving away today in the paddle giveaway. And if they can send me that X-ray, I'll show it on B-roll here. But the cells looked much healthier than all the paddles that I've X-rayed and all the Arma paddles I've seen from other reviewers that were X-rayed. Remember, especially the large cell polypropylene, the cells were pretty globular. They lost their octagonal shape. They looked kind of crushed in the X-ray. These look a lot better in this X-ray. So that was from a newer batch. So we'll see. And just wanted to bring that up. Also wanted to bring up that more and more, I already mentioned this, but I'm hearing more and more reports of the JOOLA Pro 4s core crushing. One of mine broke, and when I was at San Clemente, talking with a few people here and there, a couple of them mentioned that theirs had broken as well, core crushed. I think some of the people in our local groups have also had that issue. I think Carson, one of our 5-0 players, experienced some core crushing on his. So, yeah, as I mentioned, this is separate from Holbrook, but it's still these Gen 3 paddles with polypropylene are breaking. And that also includes some of the Proton Flamingos. I've heard a lot of reports of those core crushing. Now, the interesting thing about the JOOLA Pro 4s and the Flamingos is neither one of those are compressed from the factory, right? Remember, you saw at the launch event for the Pro 4s, they had some dissected for us. They all had pristine-looking polypropylene cells that were not crushed like the mod or the 3s before that. And they look similar to the 3S, which they fixed the compression on the cores for the 3S. However, they're still crushing. And what my hunch is that both JOOLA and Proton for their Pro 4s and the Flamingos are using lower density polypropylene. So polypropylene with thinner walls. So even though it's not compressed out of the factory, it is more likely to damage because it doesn't have the structural support that higher density polypropylene does. And it's very surprising to me that the Flamingos do, because they use the small cell polypropylene, which by nature of being small cell is already higher density usually than 8 millimeter or 10 millimeter cell diameter polypropylene. But what I think they're doing and what makes them play so great out of the box, so you remember playing with the Flamingo, that thing hits great when it's new. So does the Pro 4. It's undeniable that it just has a great feel. And this will dovetail into our deep dive today. But what I think is happening is when you reduce the density of the center of a paddle, take the weight out of the center and move it towards the edges, it automatically makes a lot of things feel better. You get a bit bigger, broader sweet spot, more forgiveness. You get more dwell time, more spin. It feels more like a tennis racket. All the good things that we love about paddles, can come from reducing the density in the center of the paddle and moving that weight out to the edges. And I think, they did that for performance reasons. They played around with different, again, this is an assumption that they are using a lower density version of polypropylene in both the Pro 4s and the Flamingos, that they did it for performance reasons. And they thought, okay, well, since we're not compressing these out of the factory, they're going to be more durable. But what we're seeing is that they're not, probably because of the density of the polypropylene.
So the performance gain that you're talking about is kind of a weight distribution from the core to the edges of the paddle. But would there also be a performance gain in having a thinner wall, creating more of a trampoline effect as well?
Yeah. With the lower density in the center of the paddle, you're also getting
springier, right?
More spring. Yeah, more trampoline. And as long as you can get that legal, right, that's fine. But if the cells are crushing because they're too thin, then it's going to increase in power and core crush, eventually become broken, uncontrollable. So, yeah, I mean, that seems to be the trend, that more and more Pro 4s are breaking and more Flamingos are breaking. And given that they use polypropylene and given that they're not compressing the cores in the factory, that's the only thing I can think of that would be causing this breakage.
Well, back to the Arma, I've been using the carbon fiber face one for about 3 to 4 hours now, and I haven't seen any change in performance. That's not a long time, but I'll certainly keep an eye on the sample that we've obtained.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Excellent. Okay, a couple of paddles are going up for pre-order. First one I want to talk about is the GRUVN LAZR-16HD Full Foam. It's a mouthful. So this is the Laser is their Kevlar version, and we talked about this paddle already on a past podcast. We had two of the full foams. One was the Move-In, the other was the Laser. You preferred the Move-In. I preferred the Laser. The Move-In is the unidirectional carbon fiber. Both of them have full foam cores. The Move-In failed PB core. They're reconfiguring and resubmitting, but the Laser passed. But it's right at the edge of PB core testing. And judging from our playtime with it, it does seem to be right at the edge of the legal limit. It's a hot paddle. The ball comes off fast from that paddle.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. The price of these is very good. So without code, pre-code, it's $180 or $179, which makes it, after our 10% code, $166. So that's going to be the cheapest full foam core and the cheapest elite tier power paddle on the market today, by quite a long shot. The Armas, they come down close to 200 with code. This one's closer to 150 with code, which is amazing. Pretty crazy. Yeah.
What are we looking at with this X-ray, John?
Yeah, let's look at the X-ray. So the owner of GRUVN's been pretty funny and just like, you guys can figure out what's in the core. I'm not going to tell you. So this is the first stage. I'll eventually dissect one, but you can clearly see it is all foam. And these linear lines that are kind of diagonally going across the paddle here, I think are divisions between different densities or types of foam.
Really?
So what I imagine they're doing is alternating sort of softer, less dense foam with stiffer, more dense foam across the paddle face. And that's a guess. Also, it looks like I can't tell if the foam is going all the way to the edge or there's edge foam. I don't think there's edge foam. I think what we're seeing there is the ghosting of the edge guard. But I will find out. Interesting that they're using polypropylene in the handle also. And there's seemingly no edge foam in the handle, which kind of supports the theory that there's no edge foam all the way around. Regardless, I really enjoyed the feel of this. Now, I haven't had a lot of time with this, clearly, but bouncing the ball on it right away, you notice it's very springy and has that low Gen 3 thud sound, hitting dinks and serves and drives and stuff. A lot of power on this thing, and a generous sweet spot. So it does feel, like a foam paddle. I'd say that compared to like the J2NF series, it feels a little stiffer, but still dwelly like a foam paddle. It doesn't feel like a really stiff Gen 2 paddle. Like, let's say, for example, the bread and butter filth, for example. That's got that stiff, Gen 2 feel. This feels a lot softer, has a lot more dwell, but I'd say it's a stiffer feel than some of the other all foam cores. I'd put the stiffness close to the Carbon True Foam Genesis.
Okay.
How about you, Eddie? Do you remember much about the core?
I remember the power aspects of it. Certainly, it's a bomber. What I recall outside of that, however, is a slightly smaller sweet spot, I would say, than the say the Honolulu, for example. I think that probably has a more generous sweet spot. Yeah, but
I would agree.
Yeah, it's a great hitting paddle.
I wouldn't call it a small sweet spot by any means, but definitely smaller than the Honolulu, which is super oversized. But bigger than a typical Gen 2 thermoform paddle, or on par at least with the thermoform paddle.
I would say on par.
Yeah. Okay. I know that the PB core also came in at 0.434 through USAP. I haven't Q core tested this one yet, so that will be forthcoming. And speaking of the Honolulu, that PB core was for the Honolulu. I don't know if I know the GRUVN laser. I think it was right up at that 4.3, 4.4 level, but I can't say for sure. So let's move on to the Honolulu J2NF.
This is not what I expected to see. This
Yeah.
X-ray. It's like a giant puzzle piece sitting in there.
So the NF stands for notched foam, so maybe that makes more sense to you now.
All right.
But yeah, if you look at the X-ray, a lot going on. So it is all foam, and this X-ray turned out really nice too. There's a lot of resolution of it. If you zoom in, you can actually see the beaded foam in the center versus the EVA foam on the edges, and there are notches holding it together. It's funny. As an archaeologist, we had to record in historic sites, and I always think of notching in terms of how they notched log cabins. And this would be a saddle notched log cabin. It's a simpler form as opposed to like a dovetail notching, which is a lot more complicated. But you can see some space in between these saddle notches here. So there's a little bit of space. And shout out to Dustin from Pickleball Medicine. He did a review of this already, and as usual for him, dissected it and was able to determine that, as the X-ray shows, the center foam is like this EPP, expanded polypropylene, and has a very similar stiffness and density to the carbon true foam Genesis. And the outer foam here is a softer EVA foam. You can also see from the X-ray that there are these lateral carbon fiber strips along the lateral edges. It's a little bit, it looks like tape, basically, in the X-ray. And this is becoming very commonplace to boost the twist weight and the forgiveness of paddles. So glad to see that in there. Also, in Dustin's dissection, normally he cuts with a Dremel around the edge, close to the edge guard, and then just pries off the facing layers. He was not able to pry these facing layers off. He had to basically sand off the layers to get down to the top layer of the foam, which is crazy. So there's almost no chance that this thing is going to become disbonded. And what's going on with that to make it adhere so quickly is that the way these beaded cores or expanded polypropylene cores are made is that the paddles put into a mold. They measure in weight the number of the amount of beads they want to put into this, and they pour in the beads, and then it goes into the oven and it cooks, and the beads expand, right? And as they expand, everything kind of cures and glues together, and they're expanding up to the face layers, which are pre-impregnated also with epoxy, and those are at the same time the epoxy is curing in the face layers and gluing to the expanded polypropylene beads, and everything just, and this paddle in particular is just solid. So, these are not going to core crush. They're seemingly never going to become desponded. These may be the most durable paddles on the market, which is crazy. Now, that's not to say that something's going to come up with these all foam paddles that could be a durability concern, but as of yet, nothing. And the carbon true foam Genesis has been out for, more than half a year, and there are almost no issues there with durability. So I have high hopes for this Honolulu, and they played great. You and I played with them. Do you remember much about their performance, Eddie?
An amazing sweet spot is what my takeaway was. Not the highest of power generation, but sufficient. I would say all court leaning power for this paddle, but very forgiving. Nice feeling paddle.
I'd put it in the power category.
In power, okay.
Yeah, I think it's akin power-wise to my 11624 Vapor Power. It's not top tier power, but definitely to me it feels very springy. Excellent sweet spot. My only issue with this paddle is the handle, and one part of that is both of my issues with the handle are my personal subjective things. I think the paddle's too short, which having a shorter paddle on the J2 shape enhances the twist weight because you get more paddle face dipping down low, and it gives it part of the reason why it has that bigger sweet spot. But I'm just not as comfortable with 2Es as I want to be with they call it a 5.5 inch handle. It's not. That's a 5.3 or smaller handle, right? But I'm just more comfortable with the 5.5 inch handle as opposed to this. Not to say that my tastes are for everybody. Also, they're still using foam pallets in this, and I much prefer a stiffer PU pallet or a fully molded handle. So my only issue with these, but great paddles, and they are on pre-sale right now for $195 before code. So again, sub 200 and great price. These are going fast. I think, what is the general release? July 13th is the first projected ship date. I imagine he's going to run out of inventory on those with this pre-order pretty quickly. So if you are at all interested in this or ready to pull the trigger, you might want to pull it earlier rather than later, unless you want to wait a little longer for these. They are gaining quite a bit of buzz, and rightfully so. Anything else to say about these J2NFs?
Shape. We've seen this shape now for a long time across several models with Honolulu, and I would like to see something else from them other than that, the 4 pizza spatula shape that they introduced for a short while.
Yeah, please, no more throat holes. They are working on new shapes. I heard. Jam, definitely reach out to me. And I know you're busy, but let me know what's in the works. I tend to get packages on my doorstep. He's very good at sending us stuff, including you, but they often arrive unannounced and without explanation. Alrighty, let's move on to your favorite segment, Eddie. Paddles of the week.
That wasn't the paddles of the week yet?
Hey, this is Paddle Dense. This is the Paddle Dense pod. Gearbox is launching on August 7th the GX2 Power, which is their newest variation of their GX2 line. If you remember, the GX2 line came out, it was their first paddle with an edge guard, and they really engineered it to reduce the vibrations and dial back to power compared to their Power series. And a lot of people loved the feel of it. Definitely an enhanced sweet spot over their edgeless paddles. But the main complaint with that paddle was that it was over-engineered in terms of vibration damping. So it was A, quiet, and B, you could barely feel the ball when it hit the paddle. And I love myself some dampened paddles, ones that are both, kind of cushiony and don't send a lot of vibrations into my arm. But even for me, like that combination of quietness and not feeling the ball when it struck the paddle, it threw me off. I'm sure I could get used to it, but it was over dampened for my tastes also. What did you think about that original one, Eddie?
Yeah, I mean, that's a double-edged sword, right, John? Because what is deceiving to you as the paddle wielder is also deceiving to your opponent, because they're not hearing that crack of the ball. Yeah. They're just seeing a ball coming at them at high velocity with no accompanying noise. So there's some advantages to that, right?
Yeah. A couple of speed ups definitely caught the opponents off guard,
right?
From what I remember. Anyhow, so this new one, Rafa, owner of Gearbox, is an engineer, and he's always loving tinkering around with this SST core. So and what also I love about Rafa is he listens to paddle reviewers and to consumers. He's not just doing what he wants to do and thinking that everybody else is dumb, but he actually listens. So what he did with this is, as the name implies, gave it more power, and he's able to do that. When he made the GX2s originally, it was still unclear exactly where the power limit was for USAP. Now they know, and he's got his own cannon. He's able to test, get his own PB core, and he just brought it right up to the limit in terms of power. And that's the first thing he did. Secondly, he gave some vibration back to it. And it's by no means is it a jarring paddle. It still feels very buttery, but you feel a lot more connected to the ball. 3, he added some sound back into it, so it has a deeper, satisfying Gen 3 thud sound, that bassy tone when you hit the ball, which I love. And he did all this and also internally. So what he did to create these new performance and auditory elements is added a foam band back around the SST core. So if you remember for the GX2, it was just that those channels, those carbon fiber wrapped foam channels that the SST core is known for, right up to the edge of the paddle. There was no edge foam. For this one, he brought back the foam. It's not as invasive or thick of a foam band as his previous, Pro Power Elongated, or the Pro Power series, but there's another EVA foam band coming back. He also adjusted the carbon fiber orientation. The carbon fiber density was changed, made it less dense. And they also changed the foam pressure in each one of those rib modules. So all that. Oh, one more thing I forgot to mention. In addition to those 3 things he changed, he also added more texture to the peel ply, which we've been asking for a long time. Remember that all the other peel ply gearbox paddles were fairly smooth to the touch, didn't get the greatest spin. This one, much rougher, or somewhat rougher, and it gets better spin. So you got a chance to hit around with these, Eddie. What's your impression of them?
I do need some more time with them, but I got to hand it to Gearbox and Raphael. I mean, these guys are engineers, right? So they're constantly tinkering with the formula, never satisfied with whatever current model they have out now. And this latest one is just another in a long line of Gearbox innovations, right? They just keep making it better. And this is, I think, the best Gearbox paddle we've seen in the history of the company.
Yeah.
More consistent. It's more forgiving. It's more of an all-around paddle than we've ever seen before from Gearbox.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is what we've been asking from Gearbox forever, right?
Yeah. And don't forget the shape. We didn't even have this shape.
That's right.
A year ago, right?
Thank you. Finally, thank you so much, Gearbox, for making a true hybrid shape. So remember their Integra was that weird skinny. It was short but skinny. Mm-hmm. They called it a hybrid, but
it's just a chopped off elongated paddle.
Like why? And this one is their new hybrid shape, which is called hybrid. They're giving up on Integra, I think. But this one is 16.3 inches long by 7.8 inches, 7.7, 7.8. They brought it out to the maximum rule of 24, the width, and you can feel it. There's an edge guard on there that spreads the density out to the edges. They've got the edge foam, which adds some forgiveness. I agree with you. It's definitely their best paddle to date. And it competes, it's current, it's relevant by today's standards, 100%. People love that level of firepower right up against the legal limit. They like the enhanced spin. They like the vibration dampening, but not too much, with a crisper feel, the Gen 3 thud, and the larger sweet spot. It's definitely the biggest sweet spot I felt on a Gearbox paddle. I put it, not as big as like the Holbrook Arma, which has a very oversized sweet spot, or the Honolulu J2NF, but still good by today's standards. I'd say above average by today's standards.
Agree. I'm still working on, and I'll say struggling a little bit with my perception of cold and hot spots on the paddle. And this I've seen before in Gearbox, and I see it with this one as well. And I hasten a little bit to really call it a hot spot, but perhaps it's just a difference between this paddle and other paddles and where, the sweet spot lies. So I need to play around with that a little bit. Right out of the box, it's different than other paddles in terms of where those, strong points are in the paddle face. So I need to play with that, but there is that perception right now of hotspots, as we've seen before.
Yeah, you mentioned that to me. I did not feel any hotspots on it when I was playing with it. Now, granted, I've just been able to hit around on my knee scooter, so it hasn't been an extensive hitting experience. But to me, it felt fairly consistent. But yeah, I mean, it would make sense with these segmented carbon fiber ribs that there's the potential for one or a couple of them to be hotter than others, so some inconsistency across the face. So
I don't think that I'm an anomaly. I think that anybody who picks up a Gearbox for the first time coming from another paddle is going to say similar things like, boy, that I expected that to go in a different direction. That came off hotter when I thought it wasn't going to, or that didn't come off as hot as I thought it was going to when, I struck the ball fairly well like I would do with any other paddle. So
yeah.
I think we'll get there. It's just a matter of potentially paddle differences more so than there's actual hot spots on the paddle.
Right. Let's look at the X-ray here. Have you seen
Yeah.
this yet?
Let's take a look.
So you can see the EVA foam band around it. So it is a floating core. You can see all the segmented SST ribs in there, which again are carbon fiber wrapped foam. And new elements to this one are the perimeter weighting. It almost looks like gauze, but clearly it's either high density something or metal infused something. These little strips around the shoulders of the paddle, presumably to make the balance point, bring the balance point down a little bit and also widen the sweet spot, which I think they've succeeded on. I didn't get a chance, Eddie, to measure the swing weight and twist weight and balance point of this. They're not the lightest paddles, but they're not head heavy as much by any means as their previous paddles, the Pro Power Elongated, for example, and the Pro Ultimates. There's also something in the handle.
Yep.
Go ahead, Eddie.
I was going to say perhaps what I'm seeing here could explain what I'm feeling, and that is the response off some of these longer, wider tubes. It's got to be different than the short, stubby tubes, right? So that could be an explanation as to why I'm feeling and others are feeling different things from different ball strikes.
Right. Yeah, that could totally be. And then I can't tell what that is in the handle that's glowing, but again, something high density, again, probably to bring the balance point down. But I will say that these feel more maneuverable than every other previous Gearbox paddle I played with, and I think that is due largely because of messing around with the density of the carbon fiber ribs. He was able to reduce the weight in the center of the paddle, which is always a great thing as long as the durability holds up. And if Gearbox's history means anything, then these are going to be some of the most durable paddles on the market. They're going to launch for $200. Yeah, they're going to launch for $280. I don't think they're going to have a discount code, but I'll similar to other big launches that Gearbox has. But I will reach out to Rafa and find out. All right, good sir. Anything else on this paddle?
No, let's move on.
Cool. So Avoura sent us their new shapes, which are also on pre-order starting today. All these paddles on pre-order. So these are the Revaya and the Rivelle. And the Revaya is their elongated shape. You can see here it's only a 1/4 inch longer, and the Rivelle is their hybrid shape. And I did the measurements. They both have long handles, and I did the measurements on these, and I think they did bring out the width of these paddles accordingly to the rule of 24, especially on the hybrid. I think the hybrid has exemplary dimensions. All their paddles are made in the USA. Let's jump straight to the X-ray of this, Eddie.
Which one are we doing first? The Revaya?
So, yeah, let's do the Revaya, which is the first one here in our notes. You can see they're using that same metal-infused gel as perimeter weighting, which extends from the handle up to the neck and shoulders of the Revaya. I need to measure this. I don't think that's wide cell polypropylene. I think it's 8 millimeter diameter rather than 10 millimeter diameter. I will verify that though. And then if you look at the next X-ray of the Revelle, which is their hybrid shape, it has the same perimeter weighting, but it extends up right to the middle of the paddle face. So they're bringing the weight up a little higher on the Revelle. Now, one of the things I love about the design of these is that they're putting the widest part of the paddle at the equator, at the sweet spot equator. Remember we talked about this with the torpedo bats and how widening the bat at the center of the sweet spot is ideal for enhancing the performance of the bat. In this case, this is one of the few paddles out there that does this in the paddle shape. Now, I'd say that the aesthetics of these look much better, in my opinion, than did their original wide body paddle. So the Avoura Rhapsody. These two, I actually think, look good. Like the Rhapsody kind of had that alien head look.
Mm-hmm.
These,
I was going to say they got rid of the alien head.
Yeah, there's still the winky eye on them, which I'll never be able to not see that now that you brought it up. I don't mind it though, the Avoura icon. But I think these look slick. I like the colorway. I like the kind of subtlety of the graphics. And I did get a chance to play. You haven't had a chance to play with them yet, but I took them out to the garage yesterday and hit around with them. And good sweet spots on these, especially for a Gen 1 construction. And I did feel a bit of a dead spot at the top of these, similar to the Paddletech Bantam series. I'd say that it's a little smaller than the Paddletech Bantams, the dead spot, but still there, like many other Gen 1s. But the perimeter weighting spread over a larger area of the perimeter, as opposed to like the ball bearings and the Paddletechs, I feel like it makes it a bigger sweet spot, broadens out makes it more forgiving overall. The power on these is much better than, in my opinion, than the Rhapsody, their wide body. And these, I didn't feel any of the bending at the neck like I did on the Rhapsody. So maybe they're enhancing something around the perimeter to prevent that flex, which some people like, the flex. I don't care for it too much. I like a more unibody feel of a paddle, but I didn't feel any of that flexing with these. And they felt very punchy. I think they have very similar cores to them as the Bantams. Like I said, I can't tell from these X-rays. I'll verify when I dissect one, or even there's a scale on the side of these X-rays. We can check it out later. But I'll verify if this is normal 8 millimeter diameter cells or wide 10 millimeter cells, as the Bantams are wide cell. Regardless, they have a similar feel and sound to the Bantams, so you get that clunky, loud response from these when you really wind up and hit them. I wouldn't put them quite at the level of the Bantams, but getting close, which is pretty impressive for another made in the USA paddle. I mean,
the level of what? The level of power?
Firepower, yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Which is interesting to me that we have Engage as another company that makes their paddles in the USA, but nobody's really been able to get close to Paddletech in terms of performance and buzz around their paddles, Engage in particular. But I think these are getting close. I need more time with them, obviously, and when I'm not injured to really put them through the ringer, and love to get your ideas on them, Eddie, when you're back. Mm-hmm. But to me, they play great and very similar to the Bantams, with some differences, some good, some probably better than the Bantams. I feel like the sweet spot's bigger than the Bantams. Maybe the firepower is a little less. Definitely in my experience, the firepower is just a notch below, but still very ample firepower in these. Spin's good. I clocked them at, I think it was 2,200 RPM on average yesterday. I need to film myself testing these things in the garage on my knee scooter. It must be a sight to behold. But I'm still able to get all the metrics that on the knee scooter that I was able to get otherwise. So good spin on these, made in the USA, and their price rate too. So I think they're going to be $200 retail before code. You get a 10% code with Johnkew. I think on this pre-order, they're knocking that price down on the pre-order to $180 and before code. So you can still take $18 off that with the code. And then the official launch is July 8th.
So John, the change in weight distribution created by the shape of the paddle, were you able to detect any differences in playability?
No, I think what they're doing is standardizing the balance point on these, and putting that in kind of a harmony state with the center of the sweet spot where the widest part of the paddle is on both of these. Mm-hmm. So I think they're manipulating all those variables to make them feel consistent. So yeah, I mean, I definitely felt they play very similarly. I definitely felt the the elongated plays more like an elongated and the hybrid more like a hybrid, meaning that the hybrid has a wider sweet spot, a little more forgiving. You don't get as much reach or as much whip as an elongated paddle. But
my question really is about, are you able to tell differences between a paddle shape like this and also I would say the JOOLA Agassi model is kind of similarly, conceived. Are you able to like pick up those differences between these newly designed paddles and something that's more standardized in shape?
I mean, it's hard to compare directly because of the Gen 1 manufacturer. Like
right.
I wouldn't be able to compare the Rivelle directly to the Agassi because Agassi is that Gen 3 diving board platform, sure. and this is the Gen 1. So it doesn't necessarily play like the Agassi. There are elements that are similar, like you get that enhanced whip with the longer handle and kind of this flared face on it, like the Agassi. So this is appealing to like ex-tennis players like myself. You get a bit more of that. It doesn't have the dwell time of the Agassi. Okay, let's compare it directly to the Paddle Techs. So the TKOC for the elongated.
Yeah.
And they don't have a hybrid yet, but we can kind of compare it to the TKOC and the ALWC, for example. I think I feel like the elongated version, so the Revaya, is way more forgiving than the TKOC. And TKOC, I feel like the top third of the paddle is dead.
Right.
And on this, I'm feeling a dead spot, but it starts maybe instead of 3 inches from the top, 1.5 inches from the top, or at most 2 inches. So it's a broader sweet spot up north, and then side to side, a broader sweet spot as well. Not as poppy, but as on the flip side of that, I feel like I'm maybe getting more power from this with full swings than with the TKOC. It feels just a little juicier in that regard. And then the Rivelle, I would put closer. This is the hybrid. I would put it closer to an elongated feel than a wide body feel. However, the width of the sweet spot is very good. So, yeah, I think they've done well with these. And I think particularly in the crowd that really loves American-made paddles, these are A, the cheapest of the American-made paddles, and B, I'd put the performance right up there with the Paddletech Bantams.
American-made seems to be synonymous with Gen 1.
Yeah. We don't have those giant thermoforming factories here in the U.S.
I guess not.
All right, Eddie, let's move on to the paddle giveaway results. So last week when I had Connor on the podcast, we did a little game where this was on Wednesday, so there was still the round of 64 at that point. And we both chose a randomly chosen team based on a random number generator from the round of 64 and see which one of our teams would progress furthest into the draw. And we both were willing to give away a paddle. So the loser of this would give away a paddle. Well, it turns out that both of our teams that were selected, randomly chosen, ended up losing in the round of 32. So Connor's team was Marshall Brown and Muhammad Alhouni. They went up to meet Colin Johnson, James Ignatowicz in the round of 32. They actually took the first game. They brought it to them. So they won 11-6 in the first game and ended up losing 4-11, 8-11 in the next two games. And then my team was Tom Protzek and John Lucian Goins, who they got a bad draw. In the round of 32, they went up against Fed Staksrud and Hayden Patriquin. So they lost in two, 11-4, 11-6. Which, Eddie, that means that both Connor and I are giving away a paddle today. We're both losers, but there are two winners that come out of this. So Connor's paddle. So Connor's paddle is the one he played with at Clemente, and he signed it.
Pro XR.
So the Pro XR Prototype 19. Yeah, and a 12.7 millimeter thickness. And this is the one we've been talking about on the pod. It's very similar to a similar build, American made, similar build to the Paddletech Bantams. So this is the elongated shape of that. Very good power pop, and signed by Connor. Also weighted up by Connor. It feels like he's got lead. Okay, I can feel it. So the lead starts here and goes up to here. I don't know the density, if it's 1 gram per inch or half a gram per inch, but I don't feel anything at the top. Oh, I do. He's also got lead at the very top.
Oh, wow.
From here to here. No wonder it feels heavy. Yeah, this thing is a beast, man. Okay, and then I'm giving away a paddle too. So before I give away my paddle, Eddie, I want to show you something. Do you remember when we were talking about the Holbrook Arma and how we wish that they would have a classic black and white colorway on the Arma? Because they have a black, they have a black handle, black edge guard. And we're like, if there's one thing I'd change about these, we like the aesthetics, but we love the white edge guard, white handle on the black.
Yeah.
So, can you see that?
No.
I'm showing it on the camera right now. I'm going to show it on your camera in a second.
Oh, the Eddie edition. Do I win that one?
You win this one.
I love it, yeah.
The signature Eddie King edition.
Oh, yeah, that's a hot seller right there.
So, one of a kind. There's one of these. They have one at the factory, and you get the other. And in a similar fashion, I got a Johnkew edition. So thank you all. Clearly, this is
so cool.
This is a joke, but an affectionate joke for them to make us a signature paddle. These are not for sale, obviously, and I'm not affiliated with Holbrook in any way, but they did this just out of the goodness of their hearts, and it's fun. So I'm giving away my signature paddle too. The winners this week. So let's talk about the winners. The winners were also randomly chosen with a random number generator. So the winner of Connor's paddle is Jason Behringer. YouTube username CalPoly1010. Jason, I will reach out to you directly by email. Do not follow anybody in the comments section who's claiming to be me or affiliated with me and to some other site. That happened on one of our giveaways. I'll email you directly from my Johnkew Pickleball email account. So be on the lookout for that, and I will mail you Connor Garnett's paddle. And then the winner of my paddle is Wesley Dennison. YouTube username Weston7. And again, I will reach out to you, Wesley, directly through email. So congrats to the winners.
So cool.
And that was fun. We'll have to do that again sometime with the pro. Just randomly choose a team and see who goes the deepest into the draw.
And what's your weight setup on that, John?
All stock.
No, not 12 grams right at the top.
I like a heavy paddle.
Okay, so today I was visiting with my team, and we went out axe throwing.
Mm-hmm.
You ever done that?
Oh, yeah. Those bars with axe throwing. Yeah. That's a ton of fun.
Talk about swing weight, man. That's like 500.
Yeah. Were you able to land anything in the bullseye?
Oh, yeah, a ton. Nice. And at the end, we had a little extra time. So our coach was like, let's try something funny. He comes out with like this 4-foot long axe that's probably got like a 2-pound head on the end. And some of these overhead jobs. Boom, right in the bullseye.
Oh, nice. It's very gratifying.
He's like, do that again. I'm like, no, that was pure luck. I can't do that again.
Stopping while I'm ahead. It's very gratifying bearing an axe and a target. Mm-hmm. All right. You know what, Eddie? I'm going to hold off on the poll results for your main paddle until you're back next week. And we can get, that sounds good. We've got close to 1,000 responses. Maybe we can get that above 1,000. I gave away the current leader in terms of brands on this week's newsletter. So go sign up for the newsletter if you're not already, because I give some some stuff we're talking about on the pod. You'll have early access to. But so far, LAZR-1624 is the most mentioned brand from our listeners as their current main paddle, which I suppose isn't surprising, but we will see. As more come in, that may change. So
that there was a time when that would have surprised me, but given previous inquiries we've made of our audience, that actually doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah. Top performance paddles at good prices.
Yep.
Doesn't surprise me either.
And we've got some new
All right,
Pro
Eddie.
Powers coming in.
Yes.
Speaking of which.
Some new alpha powers with wide cell polypropylene. So those will be launching in July also. We've got some gear of the week, thanks to you, Eddie. So you did some reaching out to Rudy Project Eyewear.
Yeah, these guys have always been in my mind because, before pickleball, I was into a lot of things, endurance sports included. So cycling and running, and Rudy Project is one of those brands right up there with Oakley in terms of just high performance eyewear. And they have just started getting into pickleball. So I reached out to them. I'm like, hey, you're new to pickleball. We love pickleball. If you could share what you have, we'd love to see it and try it. And man, is their stuff good. So I wore a pair of their Trailix models that's specifically set up for pickleball at last weekend's tournament, Rocky Mountain Championship. And man, it made a difference. Contrast of the ball was amazing. It's a one-piece lens, so it's got great coverage. So I felt very confident at the kitchen line with that I would have full protection. Highly customizable. The nose and the ears are flexible and customizable. So there's a lot going on that's really good with these Rudy Project.
Yeah, I agree. And I got 2 frames and 2 sets of lenses. The first one is these are called the Turbulence frames. And I got the photochromic purple lenses. So these get darker in lighter conditions. Mm-hmm. These purple lenses, I got them for indoor because the what's it called? The light transmission range is all the way down to 8% up to 48%. So it's some of their lowest, most clear, translucent of their photochromic lenses. And these are a little bit bigger frames. And for a variation and for outdoor, I got these ride-on frames with the red photochromic lenses. And the light transmission is 16% up to 75%. So these get a lot darker in the sunlight. Eddie, did you get the photochromic lenses also?
I did. They're fantastic. What's really cool about these lenses, John, is that the pigment is part of the lens. A lot of eyeglass companies just kind of put a film on top, and that film can degrade over time, peel off. But these are actually kind of ingrained and embedded into the plastic itself. So it's really a good technology. Yeah.
And I agree that like the color spectrum they've enhanced with these particular colors looks great on the court and outside. And I'm not getting much ghosting, if any. I need to test them out more, like with real play. But one issue I have with every piece of eyewear, particularly indoors with artificial lighting, is you see ghosting of those lights. So I need to test. I'm not seeing that so far indoors with these. I also like the look of them. They feel good too. There's and like you said, they're adjustable. They have adjustable like ventilation on the lenses so they don't fog up. But I need to put them through the ringer in terms of testing before I can, my go-to has been Brioti for a good while now. Those are fantastic glasses and lenses. These are also rated for high impact. Maybe we'll test them with the ball cannon. And
I love that idea.
Yeah. But yeah, so far, great options. They are expensive. I think they're $300 retail. We don't have a code. We can reach out to them yet, maybe, and see if maybe they can give us a discount code. That would be nice. Yeah. But yeah, good stuff. And yeah, Rudy Eyewear. It's a very well regarded company for performance sporty eyewear.
Absolutely.
Good stuff, Eddie. Let's move on because we're over an hour into this. Why not deep dive a little further?
I think we're like more than 90 minutes into it.
Jesus. Oh my God. All right. Well, this is something I want to cover. So let's do it. Yeah. So let's talk about multi-density foam cores. So, or multi-density cores in general. So the idea being, like I said earlier, putting the lightest part of the paddle in the center of the paddle and the heaviest parts out toward the edge. So if you kind of did a heat map of the center to the edges, and blue was low density and red was high density, all the blue is in the center around the sweet spot, all the high is out toward the edges. So that has a lot of performance perks. It broadens out the sweet spot. It adds dwell, which helps with spin. It also adds power, and clearly there's limitations on power, so you can't put a super low density foam in a core like EVA and not have any kind of reinforcements on it because it's going to be illegal, right? But all those things make it a better feeling paddle. And unlike polypropylene, where if you make the density of the polypropylene too low, there's durability issues. You're going to get crushing and breakage. Foam, on the other hand, doesn't suffer from that, as far as we know. It's definitely not as bad as polypropylene. So you can put whatever density foam within legal parameters in a paddle. So what we saw with some of the original Gen 4 cores, the all foam cores, like the True Foam Genesis, is kind of almost like back to a Gen 1 construction, but instead of polypropylene, it's foam. So it's foam edge to edge, one type of foam. Clearly, the True Foam Genesis is still a fantastic paddle. They're using recesses, molded recesses in the foam to give it the dwell and enhance performance. So there's that for sure. But it's still one density of foam edge to edge. And what we're seeing now with like the J2NF and other all foam cores is that they're using different densities of foam, which is similar to polypropylene and enhancing the performance of the paddles in the same way that we went from Gen 1 to Gen 2, and we're putting edge foam around a paddle, and in Gen 3 with foam enhancements. That's all different density materials and different stiffness materials, leading to a better playing, better feeling, larger sweet spot, varying levels of power paddle. And that's what we're seeing now with all foam cores. So let's go back to the X-ray of the J2NF and look at it. So this one plays great, but it's kind of reversing what I mentioned just now in terms of the density. So I'm saying that ideally you want the lowest density materials in the center of the paddle and the highest density out toward the edges. So what they have in a J2NF is this styrofoam looking beaded closed cell foam, which is very high density, very stiff in the center, and then you get a lower density, softer EVA foam around the edges. However, this thing plays amazing. And part of the reasons for its performance are that foam, the softer foam, having softer materials around the edges provides a little bit of trampoline, it provides vibration damping, and it provides a little more forgiveness and dwell time. All those things make for a great feeling paddle. However, I'll bring the question to you, Eddie. How do you think we could improve the performance of the Honolulu J2NF?
Flip it.
Yeah, you can flip it, but then you had to put like stringers or something down through the EVA foam because it's too soft, it wouldn't pass, it'd be too powerful, right? So my thought is that stiffness correlates with density in foam. So in other words, the higher density foams are going to be stiffer. So you need a stiffer foam in the center of a paddle to pass PB core and to make sure it's not too powerful, right? However, there's a correlation, but they're not, inexorably tied to each other. So you can get foams that are both dense and soft. So think like memory foam. It's denser than EVA, but it's actually softer than EVA. So there are several densities of foam and within different stiffnesses. So one of the things, if you're looking at the X-ray of the J2NF, is that they're increasing the twist weight by adding carbon fiber strips, which are like the lighter tape on the edges, the lateral edges, which doesn't improve performance. It broadens the sweet spot. It makes it more forgiving. But my thought on improving the J2NF and every other all foam paddle out there right now would be akin to making the density of the foam in the center lighter and the edge foam both soft and denser than the center foam. So my thought would be take out the carbon fiber strips. Yes, they're adding weight. It's like adding tungsten tape to the edge. It does improve it. But you can get more benefits from adding a softer foam that's denser, right? And maybe just along the edges, not on the top. You don't want to get too heavy. So like a tri-density foam core where you have the softer EVA at the top. You've got something like a memory foam denser EVA along the lateral edges, or even if it's too dense, then around the shoulder area. And then you've got your stiffer high density foam in the center. And we can mess around, I'm sure, with the density of the foam in the center to get the weight down. Also, I think putting holes in this, molded recesses in this would do it a lot of good. So you could remove some of that weight in the center through the recesses, like on the Carbon True Foam Genesis, and then add that weight back to the edges and still be within a manageable weight distribution.
Do you think that's the reason for the notches here, John, is for weight savings or weight distribution reasons?
I don't know exactly what the reasons are for the notching. I don't know. That's a good point, Eddie. I'll ask Jam, if he's willing to share why they did this. But yeah, definitely, it plays pretty unique, this paddle, I'd say, compared to other all-foam cores. So maybe they're onto something here with the saddle notching. Mm-hmm. I did look up different types of high-density foams that are both heavy and soft. So one is the memory foam, which is technically known as the viscoelastic polyurethane. There's also high-density open-cell polyurethane, which we use in like acoustic panels for dampening sound, which also have vibration damping. The issue with open-cell foam is it's not as durable as closed cell, so there might be an issue there. There's also high-density neoprene, which is very durable. There's also sorbethane, which is both dense, soft, and it has vibration damping effects. And there's also gel-infused polyurethane foams. So there you go, paddle companies. Here's some tips on what to experiment next. This is my consulting hour, apparently. But I think, we're just on the tip of the iceberg here. It's exciting to me in terms of, wow, we've got this paddle, the J2NF, and other all-foam paddles that play amazing. They're likely never to break. The grit's going to go out on these far sooner than they're going to break, if ever. And there's so much room for improvement as well. Like moving the density of the materials around and meshing vibration damping with the softness and density. And all these are exciting avenues for me as a paddle nerd.
Well, we should see something in about a week or two.
Yes, sir. Eddie, we're at an hour and a half. Why don't we skip the Q&A this week? We can just push those into next week. But I'm very glad that you were able to take some time off today from your work, phone in from the hotel room. How's your hotel, by the way?
Oh, it's just like every other Marriott. It's pretty much cookie cutter, right?
Perfect. All right, buddy. I'll see you on Monday.